Imagine standing at the edge of a perfectly calm ocean. The surface looks friendly enough, like a giant blue blanket gently breathing. Sunlight sparkles, waves roll lazily, and everything feels familiar. But the moment you start descending, the ocean changes its personality fast. Light thins out, colors fade, and within minutes, the world you know vanishes behind you, like a closing door. This is where the deep sea begins its quiet flex, and it does not care if you are impressed or terrified. It will be both. If this calm exploration of gigantic life forms in the deep sea helps you unwind tonight, please like the video, subscribe to the Deep Sea Documentary channel, and leave a comment sharing when and where you're listening, so this slow science can reach more people who fall asleep to the mysteries of the ocean. As you sink deeper, pressure builds relentlessly. Every 10 meters adds the weight of another atmosphere pressing in from all sides. It is like stacking cars on your chest, one by one, except the ocean never stops stacking. The water grows colder, darker, heavier. Sound behaves strangely. Space feels bigger and smaller at the same time. And somewhere below, far beneath the reach of sunlight and human ego, life keeps going, not just surviving, thriving, and in some cases, doing so at absolutely ridiculous sizes. This is the part that bends the mind. We tend to imagine the deep sea as sparse and empty, a watery desert where nothing much happens. But in reality, it is one of the largest living spaces on Earth. More than half of the planet is covered by ocean deeper than 2,000 meters. That is an entire world layered beneath our feet. And most of it has never been seen directly by human eyes. If Earth were a house, we would live in the attic and pretend the basement does not exist, even though it is enormous and occasionally growls. Down here, size takes on a whole new meaning. On land, being gigantic is hard. Gravity is rude, food is scattered, and bones complain constantly. In the deep sea, buoyancy changes the rules. Water supports weight. Pressure reshapes biology, and evolution starts experimenting like it has no budget limits. The result is a lineup of animals that feel exaggerated, as if nature leaned back, squinted, and said, "What if we made this one bigger?" And when we say bigger, we do not mean slightly larger than expected. We mean eyes as large as basketballs, legs stretching wider than a bus, bodies long enough to tangle submarines. These are creatures that do not just exist in the deep sea, they dominate it. They drift, stalk, scavenge, and wait in a world where patience is often the difference between eating and becoming someone else's surprise snack. What makes this even more unsettling is how quiet it all is. There are no crashing waves here, no roaring storms, just darkness, cold, and the slow movements of massive life forms gliding past one another like living shadows. It is the kind of place where something enormous can be right next to you, and you would not know until it decides you should. The deep sea does not do jump scares. It does slow reveals, which is somehow worse. This chapter is about scale, about resetting your internal ruler. Because when we talk about gigantic life forms of the deep sea, we are not just talking about individual animals. We are talking about an environment that allows largeness to make sense. A place where being big can be an advantage, where growing slowly over decades or centuries is not a problem, and where energy is spent carefully, like a long-term investment rather than a daily expense. It also forces us to confront how little we truly know. We have mapped more of the surface of Mars than we have of the deep ocean floor. There are trenches deeper than Mount Everest is tall, ecosystems powered not by sunlight, but by chemistry. and creatures so alien they make science fiction feel underprepared. Every expedition into the deep brings back footage that looks fake, like a practical effects team got carried away. And yet, this is not imagination. This is Earth, quietly being weird without asking permission. As we begin this journey, keep one thing in mind. The deep sea is not a single place. It is a layered realm, each level stranger than the last, each depth introducing new rules. And as we descend through these layers in the chapters ahead, we will meet giants shaped by darkness, pressure, and time. Some are hunters, some are scavengers, some are living colonies, pretending to be one animal. All of them challenge what we think life is capable of. So take a deep breath, which is ironic, because oxygen is about to become a luxury. We are leaving the sun behind, entering a world where size is stretched, patience is rewarded, and whales really do start to feel like warm-up acts. The deep sea is open for business, and its biggest residents are already waiting. Once you accept that the deep sea is home to creatures of truly unnecessary size, the next question is obvious. Why? Why does life down there keep getting bigger, bulkier, and more dramatic the deeper you go? Is the ocean running a secret bodybuilding program? Did evolution misplace the instruction manual? Or did nature, at some point, simply sit on the enlarge button and wander off to make coffee? The answer, as always, is less magical, but far more interesting. Gigantism in the deep sea is not an accident. It is a logical response to a set of extreme conditions that would make most surface life immediately resign. The deep ocean is cold, crushing, and painfully low on available energy. And strangely enough, those exact hardships can reward animals that grow large, slow, and stubbornly patient. Let us start with temperature, because the deep sea is cold in a way that feels personal. Down there, water temperatures hover just above freezing year-round. There are no warm seasons, no sunny afternoons, no heat waves. Cold slows everything down, including chemical reactions inside living cells. For animals, that means slower growth, slower movement, and slower metabolism. But here is the twist. When growth is slow, it can also be long. With fewer environmental changes and fewer sudden disasters, some animals are not rushed to grow up fast and die young. They can afford to grow steadily over many years, sometimes decades, quietly adding mass like a savings account that compounds very, very patiently. Pressure plays its own strange role. The crushing force of the deep ocean changes how molecules behave and how biological systems are built. Cells become adapted to withstand intense compression, and structures that might collapse near the surface can remain stable down here. Large bodies, instead of being a disadvantage, can actually help distribute pressure more evenly. In a way, size becomes a form of structural confidence. When everything around you is trying to squeeze you into soup, being bigger and sturdier can be oddly reassuring. Then there is metabolism, which in the deep sea operates at a pace that would make a sloth feel anxious. Food is scarce, unpredictable, and often arrives in dramatic but infrequent events. Because of this, many deep-sea animals burn energy at a glacial rate. Slow metabolisms mean they do not need to eat often, and when they do eat, they can afford to make it count. Large bodies are excellent for this kind of lifestyle. They store energy efficiently, lose heat slowly, and allow animals to wait. And wait, and wait some more. In the deep sea, patience is not a virtue. It is a survival strategy. there is also the matter of movement. In a world without sunlight, vision is limited and ambush is king. Many deep-sea giants are not built for speed, but for efficiency. Being larger allows them to drift, hover, or move with minimal effort. Water supports their mass, reducing the cost of carrying all that extra body. On land, being huge means fighting gravity every second. In the ocean, buoyancy is like having a permanent spotter at the gym, gently lifting part of the load so you do not strain anything important. Another subtle factor is longevity. Deep-sea environments are remarkably stable compared to the surface. There are no hurricanes ripping through the abyss, no sudden temperature swings, no wild seasonal changes. In such a consistent environment, long lifespans become possible, and long lifespans make large size more achievable. If you are not constantly dodging disasters, you can afford to grow slowly and steadily. Evolution does not need you to mature quickly. It just needs you to last. Of course, gigantism is not universal. Not everything down there is enormous. But when size does offer an advantage, the deep sea provides the conditions for it to flourish. Cold slows time. Pressure reshapes biology. Scarcity rewards efficiency. Together, they create an evolutionary playground where growing large is not reckless, but reasonable. It is important to understand that deep-sea gigantism is not about being flashy. These animals are not trying to impress anyone. There is no audience. There are no mirrors. Size down here is quiet, functional, and deeply practical. It helps creatures conserve energy, survive long stretches without food, and exist comfortably in a world that moves at a slower rhythm than anything we experience at the surface. So when you picture a giant deep-sea animal, do not imagine an aggressive monster charging through the darkness. Imagine something calmer, something older, something that has learned the art of doing less, but doing it for longer. Gigantism in the deep ocean is not nature showing off. It is nature settling in, stretching out, and deciding there is no rush. Some animals enter the spotlight because they are graceful, others because they are clever. The colossal squid enters the conversation by kicking the door open and silently reminding everyone that the deep sea does not care about your comfort level. This is not just a squid. This is the largest invertebrate known to exist on Earth, a title it wears without ceremony, drifting through the Southern Ocean like a living question mark made of muscle and hooks. For a long time, the colossal squid lived mostly as a rumor. Fishermen pulled up damaged lines. Whales bore scars no one could explain. Occasionally, a mangled tentacle surfaced, as if the ocean was teasing us on purpose. When intact specimens were finally recovered, scientists realized they were dealing with something even more extreme than the already legendary giant squid. Thicker, heavier, built less like a marathon runner and more like a heavyweight wrestler who prefers ambush to chase. The body of the colossal squid is dense and powerful, designed for short bursts rather than sustained speed. Its mantle, the main body section, is wider and more solid than that of its relatives, packed with muscle that allows sudden movement when the moment matters. This is an animal that waits, watches, and then commits fully. No warning, no hesitation. In the deep sea, hesitation gets you eaten. But what truly steals the show are the arms and tentacles, lined not just with suckers, but with swiveling hooks. These appendages are gripping tools built for control, not finesse. Each hook can rotate, ensuring that once something is caught, it stays caught. This is less like a handshake and more like being grabbed by a set of animated grappling anchors. Escape is not encouraged. Then there are the eyes. Enormous does not quite cover it. Each eye can reach the size of a dinner plate, making them the largest eyes in the animal kingdom. These eyes are not about seeing clearly or beautifully. They are about detecting movement in near total darkness. Even the faint glow of bioluminescence produced by other deep-sea creatures can be enough to trigger a response. In a place where light is rare, missing dinner is not just disappointing, it is potentially fatal. And so the colossal squid invests heavily in vision, because noticing something before it notices you is the difference between eating and being eaten. Unlike many animals we are familiar with, the colossal squid is not a showy hunter. It does not dazzle prey or perform elaborate maneuvers. It relies on surprise and strength. When something drifts close enough, the squid strikes, wrapping its arms and tentacles around the target, hooks digging in, beak moving in to deliver the final verdict. That beak, hidden at the center of the arms, is sharp enough to slice through tough flesh with ease. It is the kind of tool that does not need sharpening, because evolution already did a perfect job. What makes the colossal squid even more unsettling is how little we know about its daily life. It does not tolerate captivity. It does not volunteer for observation. Most of what we understand comes from fragments, from remains found in the stomachs of sperm whales, or from individuals accidentally hauled up from extreme depths. Every new piece of information feels like a clue dropped by a creature that would prefer to remain anonymous. There is also a strange efficiency to the squid's design. Its tissues contain ammonium compounds that help with buoyancy, allowing it to hover with minimal effort. This means it can wait in the water column, suspended, conserving energy while the ocean brings opportunities past its waiting arms. It is the deep sea equivalent of standing still and letting the conveyor belt do the work. Despite its size and fearsome tools, the colossal squid is not invincible. Sperm whales hunt them, engaging in battles that leave both sides scarred. These encounters are silent, deep, and violent, taking place far beyond human eyes. When we imagine epic clashes in nature, we often picture open savannas or crashing waves. But some of the most intense confrontations on Earth happen in total darkness, between creatures that feel more like myths than animals. The colossal squid embodies the deep sea's philosophy perfectly. Do not rush. Do not waste energy. Be ready when it matters. Its massive eyes scan the dark. Its hooked arms wait. And somewhere below the surface, in a realm where light barely exists, it drifts patiently, proving that sometimes the scariest thing in the ocean is not what you see, but what sees you first. If the colossal squid is the heavyweight bruiser of the deep, the giant squid is its more athletic, mysterious cousin. This is the animal that haunted sailor stories for centuries, the original inspiration for sea monsters with too many arms and a serious attitude problem. Long before science caught up, humans were already convinced the ocean was hiding something enormous, clever, and deeply uninterested in being disturbed. As it turns out, they were right. The giant squid earned its reputation the hard way, by almost never being seen. For most of history, it existed in a strange limbo between myth and biology. Sailors described tentacled beasts attacking ships, dragging men into the sea, and wrapping themselves around hulls like living nightmares, Scholars scoffed, artists exaggerated, and the squid, meanwhile, continued living its life far below the surface, completely unaware that it was being blamed for humanity's fear of large, unfamiliar noodles. What sets the giant squid apart is not just its length, but its design. Long, streamlined, and built for movement, it is a fast predator in a slow world. Its body is narrower than that of the colossal squid, optimized for bursts of speed rather than brute strength. When it moves, it does so with purpose, jetting water through its siphon and accelerating in sudden, dramatic surges. In the deep sea, where energy is precious, this kind of movement is used sparingly, but when it happens, it is decisive. Its arms and tentacles are long and flexible, equipped with suckers lined with serrated rings. These are not passive suction cups. They are gripping tools capable of holding struggling prey with alarming efficiency. The tentacles extend farther than the arms, acting like biological grappling lines that shoot out, latch on, and reel food inward. It is a system that favors precision and speed, perfectly suited for an ambush predator that cannot afford prolonged chases. Then there is the brain. Compared to many other invertebrates, the giant squid has a surprisingly large and complex nervous system. Its brain is ring-shaped, wrapping around the esophagus, which is both fascinating and deeply inconvenient. Every meal literally passes through the brain. This anatomical oddity aside, the giant squid shows signs of advanced sensory processing, coordination, and behavioral flexibility. It is not just reacting, it is interpreting its environment in real time. That intelligence extends to its eyes, which are massive and highly sensitive. These eyes are tuned to detect movement and contrast in extremely low light, allowing the squid to respond quickly to changes in its surroundings. In a realm where hesitation can be fatal, the ability to process information rapidly is invaluable. The giant squid does not just see, it evaluates. Unlike its bulkier cousin, the giant squid seems more comfortable roaming the water column, moving vertically through different depths. This mobility may explain why it encounters human fishing gear more often, leading to the rare but dramatic moments when one is hauled toward the surface, looking very much like it did not consent to this interview. These encounters are usually brief and fatal for the squid, but they have provided invaluable glimpses into an animal that prefers to stay off the record. The myth-making around the giant squid says more about humans than it does about the animal itself. When something unfamiliar is large, fast, and armed with grasping limbs, our imagination fills in the gaps. A squid defending itself looks like an attack. A tangled net becomes a ship being dragged under. And suddenly, the ocean is full of monsters. In reality, the giant squid is not hunting ships. It is reacting to threats in the only way it knows how, using the tools evolution gave it. What makes the giant squid truly fascinating is how modern it feels. Despite its ancient lineage, it is a creature of refinement. Speed, coordination, and intelligence combine to create a predator that is both efficient and elusive. It does not rely on overwhelming force alone. It relies on timing, perception, and decisive action. In many ways, it is the deep sea's answer to a sports car, sleek and powerful, but rarely seen in motion. The giant squid reminds us that myths often begin with something real, something glimpsed briefly, something misunderstood, and something that made humans realize, with a sinking feeling, that the ocean contains life forms that do not fit neatly into our expectations. When seafood fights back, grows arms, and disappears into the dark at high speed, the only reasonable response is to tell stories. Not all giants of the deep sea are tentacled enigmas drifting through darkness. Some of them look more familiar at first glance, like fish, just turned up to an unsettling scale. Among these, the Antarctic toothfish stands out as a heavyweight champion of cold, deep waters, a creature so rich in fat that it blurs the line between fish and floating energy storage unit. The Antarctic toothfish lives in waters that are brutally cold, even by deep sea standards. Near freezing temperatures dominate its world, and surviving there is less about speed and more about endurance. To manage this, the toothfish has evolved a body composition that would horrify most fitness trainers. Its flesh is packed with lipids, making it soft, buoyant, and incredibly energy-dense. This fat serves multiple purposes at once. It insulates against the cold, helps the fish maintain neutral buoyancy, and provides a long-lasting energy reserve in an environment where meals are unpredictable. Think of it as wearing a winter coat that also functions as a pantry. The fat allows the toothfish to drift with minimal effort, conserving energy while remaining ready to move when needed. Unlike surface fish that rely on constant swimming to stay afloat, the Antarctic toothfish can hover in the water column, reducing the metabolic cost of simply existing. In the deep sea, that is an enormous advantage. This strategy is not unique to the toothfish, but it is one of the most extreme examples. Many large deep-sea fish share this theme of soft bodies and high-fat content. Their muscles are not built for rapid, sustained swimming. Instead, they are designed for occasional bursts of movement, followed by long periods of stillness. Fat helps make that lifestyle possible, acting as both ballast and battery. The Antarctic toothfish is also an opportunistic predator. It feeds on a wide range of prey, from smaller fish to squid, taking advantage of whatever crosses its path. Its size allows it to tackle relatively large meals when the opportunity arises, which fits perfectly with its energy storage strategy. When food is available, eat well. When it is not, rely on reserves. This feast or famine approach is a common theme in the deep ocean, where consistency is rare and patience is rewarded. Another remarkable feature of the toothfish is its blood chemistry. To survive in freezing waters, it produces antifreeze proteins that prevent ice crystals from forming in its tissues. These proteins bind to tiny ice crystals before they can grow, keeping the fish's internal systems running smoothly. It is a biological trick that allows life to function in conditions that would turn most animals into frozen statues. Despite its size and adaptability, the Antarctic toothfish is not an apex predator without concerns. It plays a crucial role in the Southern Ocean ecosystem, both as a hunter and as prey for even larger animals. Its fat-rich body makes it an appealing target, essentially advertising itself as a high-calorie meal, swimming slowly through the cold. In a world where energy is everything, that is a risky way to exist. Human interest in the toothfish has added another layer to its story. Marketed under more appealing names, it has become a valuable catch, prized for its rich, buttery flesh. This has led to intense fishing pressure in some regions, raising concerns about population stability. A fish that evolved to grow slowly and live a long time does not rebound quickly from heavy harvesting. In the deep sea, patience cuts both ways. What makes massive deep sea fish like the Antarctic toothfish so fascinating is how different their version of success looks compared to surface species. There is no emphasis on speed, agility, or constant motion. Instead, survival is about efficiency, insulation, and the ability to wait. Fat is not a flaw here. It is the entire strategy. These fish remind us that size in the deep ocean is often supported by softness rather than strength. Their bodies are not armored or streamlined for high performance. They are tuned for stability, buoyancy, and energy conservation. In a place where the cold never lets up and food does not keep a schedule, being a floating reserve of warmth and calories is a winning move. So while tentacles and hooks tend to steal the spotlight, do not overlook the giants with fins and fatty muscles. The Antarctic toothfish and its deep-sea relatives prove that sometimes the smartest way to survive the abyss is to slow down, bulk up, and let your body do the waiting for you. Just when you think the deep sea cannot get any more unsettling, it introduces the giant isopod. At first glance, it looks like a harmless pill bug, the kind you might find under a rock in your backyard. Then your brain processes the scale, and suddenly that childhood memory needs therapy. Giant isopods are crustaceans related to shrimp and crabs, except evolution decided to take the humble roly-poly, drop it into the abyss, and let pressure handle the rest. These creatures can grow longer than a human forearm, sometimes even larger, with segmented bodies wrapped in overlapping armor plates. This armor is not decorative. It is a necessity. Living on the deep sea floor means existing in a world where falling debris, shifting sediments, and the occasional aggressive neighbor are all part of daily life. The exoskeleton provides protection while also allowing flexibility, a balance that lets the isopod crawl, dig, and curl defensively if needed. Unlike the fast predators we have met so far, giant isopods are scavengers. They are the cleanup crew of the deep ocean, patiently patrolling the seabed for fallen carcasses. When something large dies in the upper ocean and sinks, it becomes a rare and valuable resource below. Giant isopods can detect these events from a distance, homing in on the smell of decay like underwater vultures with too many legs. When they find food, their behavior shifts from sluggish to impressively determined. A group of isopods may descend on a carcass and feed intensively, tearing chunks of flesh with their powerful mouthparts. They eat quickly, not out of greed, but out of necessity. There is no guarantee of when the next meal will arrive, so when opportunity knocks, the correct response is to eat, like the future depends on it. Because it does. This feeding strategy is paired with an extraordinary ability to endure long periods of starvation. Giant isopods can go months, sometimes even years, without eating. Their metabolism is extremely slow, and their bodies are built to conserve energy at all costs. After a large meal, they may retreat into inactivity, digesting slowly and waiting patiently for the next event. It is a lifestyle defined by extremes. Feast intensely, then wait quietly. Their legs, arranged along the length of their body, are strong and well adapted for crawling across soft sediments. Unlike fish that swim constantly, isopods are built for the bottom, navigating uneven terrain with steady precision. Their antennae constantly probe the environment, gathering chemical and tactile information in a world where vision is limited. To an isopod, the seafloor is a landscape of invisible signals, and it knows how to read them. Despite their intimidating appearance, giant isopods are not aggressive hunters. They do not chase prey or actively seek out living animals to attack. Their role is essential, but understated. By breaking down dead matter, they help recycle nutrients back into the ecosystem, ensuring that energy does not simply vanish into the depths. Without scavengers like isopods, the deep sea would become a graveyard clogged with uneaten remains. There is something oddly endearing about their awkward movements and unhurried demeanor. They are not sleek, they are not fast. They look like they should be hiding under a rock, not starring in documentaries. And yet, they are perfectly suited to their environment. Their size helps them dominate carcasses, their armor keeps them safe, and their patience ensures they survive long stretches of nothing happening at all. In captivity, giant isopods have become minor celebrities, partly because they are so unapologetically strange. Watching one move is like observing a creature from an alternate version of Earth. Where bugs grew large and learned to thrive in silence, their occasional refusal to eat for months at a time has confused and frustrated caretakers. But to the isopod, this is just business as usual. Giant isopods remind us that gigantism in the deep sea is not limited to predators or elegant forms. It can also take the shape of armored scavengers, quietly doing the unglamorous work that keeps the ecosystem functioning. They may look like pill bugs that took performance-enhancing pressure, but they are also a testament to how adaptable life can be when given time, darkness, and a lot of patience. If you ever needed proof that nature occasionally loses track of proportions, the Japanese spider crab is happy to volunteer. This is a crab that seems to have been assembled one leg at a time, with no one present to say, "I think that's enough." Its body is relatively modest, but its legs stretch outward in all directions, creating a span that can reach wider than a small car. Encountering one in the wild must feel less like meeting an animal and more like stumbling into a moving coat rack. The Japanese spider crab lives along the Pacific coast of Japan, typically at considerable depths where light is scarce and the seafloor stretches out in cold silence. It is the largest known arthropod by leg span, a title earned not through bulk but through sheer reach. Each leg is long, thin, and jointed, allowing the crab to navigate rocky terrain with surprising delicacy. It does not scuttle so much as carefully step, like a creature very aware of how much space it takes up. Longevity is one of the spider crab's most remarkable traits. Individuals are believed to live for many decades, possibly even over a century. In the deep sea, long life is often the reward for slow living, and the spider crab embraces this philosophy completely. It grows gradually, molts infrequently, and avoids unnecessary risks. When your legs take up half the room, caution is just good planning. Those legs serve more than one purpose. Their length allows the crab to cover large areas of the seafloor while expending minimal energy. Instead of constantly moving its entire body, it can reach outward, probing the environment for food. This makes it an efficient forager in a habitat where resources are spread thinly. The legs also elevate the body above the seafloor, keeping it away from sediments and potential threats lurking just below the surface. Despite its intimidating size, the Japanese spider crab is not an aggressive predator. It is an opportunistic feeder, consuming a mix of plant material, small animals, and carrion. Its diet reflects flexibility rather than specialization, a useful trait in an environment where reliability is rare. When something edible appears, the crab takes advantage, using its long legs to manipulate food and its claws to break it down. One of the most charming aspects of the spider crab is its tendency to decorate itself. Algae, sponges, and other small organisms often cling to its shell, either by accident or by the crab's subtle encouragement. This camouflage helps it blend into its surroundings, turning a massive, leggy silhouette into just another part of the seafloor. It is hard to notice a creature when it looks like a moving chunk of habitat. Molting is a risky business for any arthropod, and for the Japanese spider crab, it is especially dramatic. To grow, it must shed its old exoskeleton and emerge temporarily soft and vulnerable. During this time, it often hides, reducing movement and exposure. Given how long it can live, it does not rush this process. Growth is slow, deliberate, and carefully timed to minimize danger. The crab's impressive size also influences how it interacts with its environment. Its long legs can span crevices and obstacles that would challenge smaller creatures, giving it access to food sources others cannot reach. At the same time, that size makes hiding difficult. Instead of relying on small shelters, the spider crab relies on camouflage, patience, and the fact that not many predators are eager to wrestle with something that looks like it might collapse the ceiling if startled. Human fascination with the Japanese spider crab is understandable. It looks unreal, like a creature from a fantasy sketchbook that somehow wandered into the ocean. Yet it is not a relic or an anomaly. It is a successful, well-adapted species that has thrived by embracing an unusual design and sticking with it for a very long time. In the end, the Japanese spider crab shows us that gigantism does not always mean bulk and muscle. Sometimes it means legs. So many legs. Enough legs to make you wonder if nature simply forgot to stop adding them. And in the quiet depths where it lives, that excessive reach turns out to be exactly what works. If you were designing an animal from scratch and someone suggested removing its mouth, digestive system, and face entirely, you would probably assume survival was off the table. The giant tube worm disagrees, loudly. In fact, it thrives in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, while completely skipping the act of eating in any way we would recognize. No chewing, no swallowing, no crumbs. And yet, it manages to grow to lengths that make it one of the most iconic giants of the deep sea. Giant tube worms live near hydrothermal vents, places where the seafloor cracks open and releases superheated, mineral-rich fluids from deep within the earth. These vents are not gentle hot springs. They are chemical chimneys, blasting out water that would kill most life instantly. The surrounding environment is dark, toxic, and constantly shifting. Sunlight never reaches here, which means traditional food webs based on photosynthesis simply do not exist. And yet, life flourishes. The tube worm's secret lies in a partnership so effective it borders on cheating. Inside its body lives a dense population of symbiotic bacteria. These bacteria use chemicals from the vent fluids, such as hydrogen sulfide, to produce energy through a process known as chemosynthesis. Instead of using sunlight, they use chemistry. The energy they generate feeds the tube worm directly. The worm does not hunt, it does not graze, it simply hosts an internal power plant. This arrangement is so complete that adult giant tube worms do not even have a digestive tract. During development, they lose it entirely. Their bodies become dedicated support systems for their bacterial partners. The worm provides shelter, access to chemicals, and a stable environment. The bacteria provide food. It is one of the most efficient roommate arrangements in nature, with none of the usual arguments over rent or fridge space. Physically, the giant tube worm is striking. Its long white tube anchors it to the seafloor, offering protection and stability. From the top emerges a bright red plume, often mistaken for a mouth or flower. This plume is actually a specialized structure used for gas exchange. It absorbs oxygen and chemicals from the surrounding water and delivers them to the bacteria inside. The red color comes from hemoglobin, similar to our own blood, but tuned to bind chemicals that would be poisonous to most animals. Growth is rapid by deep sea standards. Fueled by a constant chemical energy supply, giant tube worms can grow astonishingly fast, reaching impressive sizes in just a few years. In a world where most deep-sea creatures grow slowly, this makes them unusual giants, built not by patience, but by productivity. When the chemistry is right, they take full advantage. The environment around hydrothermal vents is unstable. Vents can shut down, shift position, or change chemistry over time. Tube worms respond by clustering densely around active vents, creating entire communities that rise like underwater cities. When a vent goes cold, the community dies off, leaving behind empty tubes like abandoned high-rises on the seafloor. Life here is intense, brief by geological standards, and completely dependent on Earth's internal heat. What makes giant tube worms especially fascinating is how completely they rewrite the rules of what it means to be an animal. They are not eating organisms in the traditional sense. They are more like mobile ecosystems, part animal, part bacterial colony. Their success forces us to expand our definition of survival and to accept that life does not need sunlight, plants, or even mouths to flourish. There is also something quietly funny about their situation. These creatures have no face, no head, and no way to enjoy a meal. Yet they manage to secure a constant energy supply in one of the harshest places imaginable. Meanwhile, humans argue over diets and forget lunch. The tube worm simply exists, nourished by chemistry and cooperation. Giant tube worms remind us that gigantism in the deep sea is not always about size alone. It is about strategy, about finding a loophole in the system and building an entire body around it. In the eternal darkness, near volcanic vents, where poison fuels life and heat replaces sunlight, these mouthless giants stand tall, quietly proving that eating well is optional when your friends are bacteria. Few animals look less prepared for survival than a jellyfish. No bones, no brain in the traditional sense, mostly water, held together by ambition and a vague sense of direction. And yet, in the deep sea, jellyfish not only survive, they grow enormous. Some species stretch wider than a human is tall, drifting through the darkness like living parachutes. They look like floating grocery bags that accidentally unlocked the secrets of life. The key to their success lies in simplicity. Jellyfish bodies are composed mostly of water, which means they require very little energy to build and maintain. In the deep sea, where calories are scarce and movement is costly, this is an incredible advantage. Instead of investing energy in dense muscles or complex organs, jellyfish keep things light, flexible, and cheap. They are the minimalists of the abyss, surviving on a biological budget that would impress any accountant. Transparency is another masterstroke. Many deep-sea jellyfish are nearly invisible, their bodies blending seamlessly with the surrounding water. In an environment where light is limited and shadows are dangerous, being see-through is a powerful form of camouflage. Predators struggle to detect what they cannot easily distinguish from the background. Prey, meanwhile, may drift too close before realizing that the harmless blob in front of them is very much alive and slightly hungry. Movement in giant deep-sea jellyfish is slow and deliberate. They pulse their bells gently, creating small currents that carry them forward. This method of travel is incredibly energy efficient. Instead of fighting the water, jellyfish work with it, allowing currents to do much of the moving. In the deep sea, where patience often outperforms power, this passive approach is perfectly suited. Feeding is equally efficient. Long, delicate tentacles trail behind the jellyfish, armed with stinging cells that capture small animals drifting by. There is no chase, no struggle, just contact and collection. Once prey is secured, it is transported to the mouth, which sits at the center of the body. For such a simple organism, the system works remarkably well, allowing jellyfish to exploit a steady trickle of passing food. Some giant jellyfish also produce faint bioluminescence. This soft glow can serve multiple purposes, from confusing predators to attracting curious prey. In the deep sea, light is a language, and even a gentle shimmer can change the outcome of an encounter. The jellyfish does not need to shout. A whisper of light is often enough. What makes giant jellyfish particularly fascinating is how little they seem to care about size. Growing larger does not require major redesigns. A bigger jellyfish is essentially a scaled-up version of a smaller one, still mostly water, still pulsing slowly, still drifting. This makes gigantism relatively easy to achieve compared to animals that rely on rigid structures or heavy tissues. In the deep sea, where efficiency rules, jellyfish are playing the game on easy mode. Despite their ghostly appearance, giant jellyfish are not fragile. Their gelatinous bodies can withstand pressure changes and physical disturbances that would injure more rigid animals. They bend, flex, and reform, absorbing forces rather than resisting them. It is a survival strategy built on adaptability rather than strength. There is something humbling about their success. In a realm filled with armored crustaceans, muscular predators, and chemical-powered worms, the jellyfish floats along, barely trying, yet thriving. It does not rush. It does not overthink. It simply pulses, feeds, and grows, letting the ocean handle the rest. Giant deep-sea jellyfish challenge our assumptions about what complex life needs to look like. They prove that intelligence, speed, and strength are not the only paths to success. Sometimes, being mostly water, nearly invisible, and very, very patient is enough. So the next time you see a plastic bag drifting in the water, spare a thought for its far more accomplished cousin. In the deep sea, the jellyfish has perfected the art of doing almost nothing, and doing it incredibly well. At some point in exploring the deep sea, you realize that nature stopped caring about our definitions. A siphonophore is the perfect example. It looks like a single, impossibly long creature drifting through the water, sometimes stretching longer than a blue whale. But it is not one animal. It is a colony, a living assembly of specialized individuals working together so seamlessly that they pretend to be a single organism. This is teamwork taken so far. It crossed into existential horror. Each siphonophore begins life as a single fertilized egg. From that point, things get strange fast. Instead of growing into one animal, the organism buds repeatedly, producing genetically identical units called zooids. These zooids remain physically connected and take on specialized roles. Some handle movement, others focus on feeding, some reproduce, others defend the colony. None of them can survive on their own. Together, they form something larger and more capable than any individual unit could ever be. The result is a creature that behaves like one animal, but is actually many. When a siphonophore moves, it is not because one muscle contracts. It is because a coordinated group of swimming zooids pulses in unison, propelling the entire colony forward. When it feeds, specialized feeding units deploy long, stinging tentacles that can extend incredible distances, forming an invisible trap in the water. Prey drifting into this field does not realize what has happened until it is already part of the system. Size is where siphonophores truly defy expectations. Some species grow to extraordinary lengths, making them among the longest animals on Earth. And yet, much of that length is nearly invisible. Transparent bodies and delicate structures allow them to blend into the water, turning them into living ambush zones. You do not see a siphonophore coming. You simply enter it. The tentacles of massive siphonophores are equipped with potent stinging cells, capable of immobilizing prey quickly. These tentacles can trail behind the colony like a net, increasing the effective feeding area without requiring constant movement. It is an energy-efficient strategy perfectly suited to the deep sea, where drifting prey is more common than active pursuit. What makes siphonophores especially fascinating is the level of coordination involved. Each zooid responds to chemical and neural signals that synchronize the colony's behavior. There is no central brain issuing commands. Control is distributed, shared across the system. Decisions emerge from interaction rather than instruction. It is less like an animal and more like a biological corporation with excellent communication and no human resources department. This organization allows siphonophores to be incredibly adaptable. They can adjust their shape, orientation and behavior based on conditions. Some can coil or contract, others can change the spacing of their zooids. The colony is not rigid. It is flexible, responsive, and surprisingly graceful for something that is essentially a floating committee. Despite their size and efficiency, siphonophores are rarely encountered by humans. Their fragility makes them difficult to study, as they often break apart when disturbed. Most of what we know comes from deep-sea observations, where their ghostly forms drift through the darkness, glowing faintly or reflecting the light of submersibles. Seeing one is less like spotting an animal, and more like witnessing a concept made visible. There is something deeply unsettling about siphonophores, not because they are aggressive, but because they challenge our sense of individuality. Where does one animal end and another begin? If each zooid is alive, but none can live alone, what exactly are we looking at? The siphonophore does not answer these questions. It simply exists, quietly and efficiently. In the deep sea, where survival often depends on cooperation and specialization, siphonophores represent an extreme solution. Instead of evolving a bigger body, they evolved a better system. They did not become giants by growing heavier or stronger. They became giants by working together so completely that they erased the boundaries between themselves. So when you imagine a massive siphonophore drifting through the abyss, remember that you are not seeing one creature. You are seeing a living agreement, a colony that decided individuality was optional. And in doing so, it became one of the most impressive and terrifying examples of teamwork on Earth. When most people hear the word sponge, they imagine something soft, yellow, and mildly resentful about doing dishes. Deep sea sponges are here to correct that image. These are not cleaning tools. They are living structures, some growing taller than a human, wider than a dining table, and older than most human civilizations. In the deep ocean, sponges are not background decoration. They are ancient landlords, quietly renting out space to anyone polite enough not to eat the building. Giant deep-sea sponges thrive in cold, dark waters, where stability is the norm and change happens slowly. Unlike animals that rely on movement, sponges commit fully to the idea of staying put. Once they settle on the seafloor, they do not migrate, chase, or flee. Instead, they grow. Slowly, patiently, sometimes for thousands of years. Some of the largest known sponges are estimated to be several millennia old, making them among the oldest living animals on Earth. Their size is a direct result of this long, uninterrupted growth. Without the need to move or hunt, sponges invest energy into building complex, rigid skeletons made from silica or protein-based fibers. These skeletons form intricate internal frameworks that support massive bodies, allowing sponges to rise above the seafloor like underwater apartment complexes. And much like apartment complexes, they quickly fill up. Sponges feed by filtering water. They pump vast amounts of seawater through their porous bodies, extracting bacteria, organic particles, and microscopic nutrients. This process is slow but constant. A giant sponge may filter thousands of liters of water every day, quietly dining on whatever happens to drift by. There is no rush, no preference, and no waste. If it fits through the pores, it is potentially dinner. This constant flow of water makes sponges essential ecosystem engineers. Their bodies become habitats for a staggering variety of organisms. Small crustaceans, worms, brittle stars, and countless microbes take up residence within the sponge's structure. Some live there temporarily, others spend their entire lives inside. To them, the sponge is not an animal, it is a neighborhood. The sponge, for its part, seems unbothered. These tenants rarely cause harm, and some even provide benefits, such as cleaning out debris or contributing nutrients. The relationship is less about cooperation and more about tolerance. The sponge offers space. The ocean fills it. No contracts required. One of the most remarkable aspects of giant deep-sea sponges is their resilience. Despite their soft appearance, they can survive physical damage, regenerate lost sections, and continue growing even after significant injury. Their simple organization, lacking true organs or tissues, allows them to adapt in ways more complex animals cannot. If part of a sponge is destroyed, the remaining cells can reorganize and keep going, as if nothing important happened. Their quiet success also makes them excellent record keepers. The skeletons of long-lived sponges contain chemical signatures of past ocean conditions, effectively preserving a history of deep-sea environments over centuries. Scientists can study these structures to learn how temperatures, chemistry, and currents have changed over time. The sponge does not take notes, but it remembers everything. There is something almost meditative about sponge life. No eyes, no nerves, no decisions, just a steady rhythm of water flowing in, nutrients being absorbed, and waste drifting away. In a world where survival often demands constant vigilance, sponges succeed by opting out of the chaos entirely. Yet their importance cannot be overstated. By filtering water, recycling nutrients, and providing habitat, giant sponges support entire deep-sea communities. Remove them, and the ecosystem changes dramatically. They are silent pillars holding the system together, unnoticed but essential. So while they may not look impressive at first glance, giant deep-sea sponges represent one of the most successful strategies in the ocean. Grow slowly. Stay put. Live forever. Rent space to everything, and never, ever move out. If there is one lesson the deep sea keeps teaching us, it is never underestimate crustaceans. Amphipods are small, shrimp-like creatures found almost everywhere on Earth, from freshwater streams to forest soil. In the deepest parts of the ocean, however, some amphipods decided that being small was optional. The result is a lineup of oversized scavengers that look like shrimp, who accepted a challenge and refused to stop growing. Deep-sea amphipods inhabit some of the most extreme depths on the planet, including ocean trenches, where pressure reaches unimaginable levels. At these depths, the weight of the water above would crush most animals instantly. Amphipods survive here thanks to highly specialized cellular structures that keep their proteins stable and their membranes flexible under intense compression. Their bodies are chemically tuned to function where physics seems actively hostile. Size plays an interesting role in their survival. Larger bodies allow these amphipods to store more energy and travel farther across the seafloor in search of food. In trench environments, resources are sparse and widely scattered. Being bigger means covering more ground and capitalizing on rare opportunities. When something edible arrives, usually in the form of sinking organic material or a dead animal, amphipods are often among the first to arrive. Their scavenging behavior is efficient and relentless. Amphipods are equipped with strong mouthparts designed for tearing and shredding. When a food source appears, they swarm it, sometimes in astonishing numbers. What starts as a single fallen carcass can quickly become a writhing mass of feeding amphipods, reducing it to bare bones in a surprisingly short time. In the deep sea, nothing goes to waste for long. Despite their feeding frenzy reputation, amphipods are not mindless. They are highly responsive to chemical cues, detecting food from great distances through subtle changes in the water. This sensitivity allows them to locate resources efficiently in an environment where visibility is limited and opportunities are fleeting. Their antennae and sensory structures are finely tuned tools in a world dominated by darkness. Their bodies are laterally compressed, giving them a distinctive sideways flattened appearance. This shape allows them to maneuver through narrow spaces and burrow into soft sediments. It also makes them surprisingly agile, capable of sudden bursts of movement when necessary. For scavengers, the ability to arrive quickly and secure a position can make all the difference. One of the most fascinating aspects of deep-sea amphipods is how they handle the pressure of their environment. Their cells contain unique molecules that counteract the effects of extreme compression on proteins. Without these adaptations, essential biological processes would simply stop working. Instead, amphipods function normally, going about their scavenging routines as if the crushing weight of the ocean were just another inconvenience. There is a certain inevitability to amphipods. They appear wherever organic material accumulates, quietly ensuring that energy is recycled back into the ecosystem. They do not dominate through size alone, but through consistency. Wherever life ends in the deep sea, amphipods are likely to be nearby, ready to clean up and move on. Their presence also highlights an important truth about deep-sea ecosystems. Even in the most remote, extreme environments, life finds a way to exploit every available niche. Amphipods have become specialists in the art of waiting, detecting, and consuming, turning the ocean's leftovers into their primary livelihood. In many ways, oversized deep-sea amphipods are a reminder that evolutionary success does not always look glamorous. They are not sleek predators or ancient giants. They are adaptable, persistent, and very hard to get rid of. From shallow waters to the deepest trenches, amphipods have found a way to thrive. So if you ever wonder which creatures are most likely to endure in every corner of the planet, look to the shrimp, like scavengers, quietly doing their work in the abyss. Deep-sea amphipods are living proof that no matter how extreme the environment becomes, shrimp will eventually figure it out. If the deep sea had problem solvers, the octopus would be at the top of the list, quietly unscrewing jars while everyone else wondered where the lid went. Deep-sea octopus species take this intelligence and combine it with size, creating giants that are not just physically impressive, but mentally formidable. In an environment where survival often depends on quick decisions and creative solutions, Having a brain that refuses to panic is a major advantage. Deep-sea octopuses differ from their shallow water relatives in more than just depth. Their bodies are adapted to cold, dark conditions, often appearing pale, translucent, or ghost-like. But beneath that understated exterior lies one of the most sophisticated nervous systems in the ocean. Unlike animals with centralized control, octopus intelligence is distributed. A significant portion of their neurons are located in their arms, allowing each limb to process information independently. In practical terms, this means an octopus can explore, manipulate, and react in multiple directions at once. For a giant deep-sea octopus, this multitasking ability is essential. With limited visibility and unpredictable encounters, being able to gather information from several arms simultaneously increases awareness of the surrounding environment. One arm can probe the seafloor, another can brace against a rock, while others remain ready to respond. It is like having 8 semi-independent assistants, all reporting back to a central office that never sleeps. Camouflage is another area where octopuses excel. Specialized skin cells allow them to change color and texture, blending seamlessly with their surroundings. In the deep sea, where light is scarce, this camouflage often involves subtle shifts rather than dramatic displays. An octopus can match the tone and texture of rocks, sediment, or coral, becoming nearly invisible. This ability serves both defense and offense, allowing the octopus to avoid detection or ambush prey. Movement in giant deep-sea octopuses is deliberate and controlled. They are capable of sudden bursts when necessary, but much of their time is spent navigating carefully, conserving energy. Their flexible bodies allow them to squeeze into crevices and shelters that would be inaccessible to rigid animals. In a world full of hidden dangers, the ability to disappear into the landscape is invaluable. Feeding strategies among deep-sea octopuses vary, but intelligence plays a role in all of them. They manipulate objects, explore potential food sources, and use their arms with remarkable precision. Their beaks, hidden beneath the arms, are powerful tools capable of breaking through tough shells. Combined with problem-solving skills, this makes them effective hunters, even in challenging conditions. One of the most intriguing aspects of deep-sea octopus life is reproduction. Some species exhibit extreme parental care, with females guarding their eggs for years without feeding. This dedication requires incredible endurance and patience, traits that align with the slow, energy-conserving lifestyle of the deep ocean. The mother's role is to protect the next generation at all costs, even her own survival. There is something deeply unsettling and fascinating about encountering a giant octopus in the deep sea. It is not just an animal reacting instinctively, it is a thinking presence, aware of its surroundings, capable of learning and adapting. Its intelligence is not flashy or theatrical. It is quiet, focused, and efficient. Octopuses challenge our assumptions about what intelligence looks like in nature. They do not have social structures like mammals or vocal communication. Their problem-solving happens in silence, expressed through movement and interaction rather than sound. In the deep sea, where noise travels far and attention can be dangerous, this quiet intelligence is perfectly suited. Giant deep-sea octopuses remind us that size and brains are not mutually exclusive. They are proof that evolution can build creatures that are both physically imposing and mentally agile. With 8 arms gathering information, manipulating the environment, and responding to threats, multitasking is not just helpful. It is survival. In the darkness of the deep ocean, where every decision matters, the octopus thrives by thinking its way through the abyss, one arm at a time. After meeting mouthless tube worms powered by bacteria, it is only fair to acknowledge their far more aggressive cousins. The deep sea is home to a surprising variety of giant worms that do not rely on chemistry or patience. These worms hunt. And in the darkness, where shapes blur and movement is subtle, even something that looks like spaghetti can become deeply unsettling. Giant predatory worms come in many forms, but they share a common theme: simplicity paired with effectiveness. Their bodies are elongated, flexible, and built to move through sediment, water, or narrow crevices with ease. Without rigid skeletons to slow them down, these worms glide, burrow, and strike with precision in an environment where energy must be spent carefully. A streamlined design is a winning strategy. Some of these worms live partially buried in the seafloor, exposing only their sensory structures. They wait. Vibrations, chemical cues, and subtle water movements signal when something edible wanders too close. In a flash, the worm lunges, extending its body outward with surprising speed. What follows is quick and decisive. In the deep sea, prolonged struggles waste energy, and predators cannot afford inefficiency. Mouthparts vary dramatically among giant worms. Some species are equipped with jaws capable of snapping shut on prey, while others use extendable proboscises armed with hooks or teeth. These structures can be retracted and deployed rapidly, allowing the worm to strike without fully exposing itself. It is a design that favors ambush and minimizes risk. Unlike animals with eyes adapted for vision, many deep-sea worms rely on other senses. Their bodies are lined with receptors sensitive to chemical gradients and mechanical disturbances. To a worm, the seafloor is alive with information, every vibration a potential meal or threat. This sensory awareness allows them to function effectively in complete darkness, navigating a world that would be disorienting to creatures dependent on sight. Size amplifies their effectiveness. A larger body allows a worm to tackle larger prey and store more energy. It also reduces the number of predators willing to challenge it. In the deep sea, where encounters are rare but consequential, being intimidating has value. A massive worm emerging from the sediment is often enough to discourage competition. Not all giant worms are active hunters. Some are opportunistic, feeding on organic material or smaller animals that drift into reach. Others alternate between predation and scavenging, adapting their behavior based on availability. This flexibility is crucial in an environment where consistency is a luxury. What makes giant deep-sea worms particularly fascinating is how little they resemble what we typically imagine when we think of large animals. There are no fins, claws, or shells, just muscle, movement, and purpose. Their success challenges our bias toward complexity. Sometimes, the simplest body plan is the most adaptable. There is also an element of quiet horror to these creatures. Worms do not announce themselves. They do not glow dramatically or charge through the water. They wait, they sense, and when the moment is right, they act. In the deep sea, where reactions must be immediate, this approach is brutally effective. Despite their intimidating nature, giant worms play important roles in their ecosystems. Predatory species help regulate populations of smaller animals, while burrowing worms influence sediment structure and nutrient distribution. Their movements mix the seafloor, affecting how oxygen and organic materials circulate through the habitat. Encountering a giant deep-sea worm would likely be brief and unforgettable. There would be no warning, no dramatic build-up, just movement where there was none before. It is a reminder that danger in the deep sea often arrives quietly, In the end, these worms prove that gigantism in the abyss does not require elaborate designs or complex strategies. Sometimes, all it takes is a long body, sharp tools, and the patience to wait. Even spaghetti, under enough pressure and darkness, can become something you really do not want to meet. When most people picture a shark, they imagine speed, sleekness, and a constant sense of urgency. Deep-sea sharks did not get that memo. Species like the sleeper shark operate on a completely different schedule, one that favors patience over pursuit and endurance over excitement. These are not the sports cars of the ocean. They are ancient submarines with teeth, gliding slowly through the darkness, entirely confident that there is no rush. Sleeper sharks inhabit cold, deep waters where energy conservation is the name of the game. Their bodies are large, heavy, and built for steady movement rather than sudden bursts. They cruise slowly, almost lazily, through the water, minimizing energy expenditure. This sluggish pace is not a weakness. It is a deliberate strategy shaped by an environment where calories are scarce and unnecessary movement is expensive. One of the most remarkable features of sleeper sharks is their longevity. Some species are believed to live for centuries, making them among the longest-lived vertebrates known. Growing slowly in cold waters, their bodies accumulate age the way deep-sea environments accumulate time, gradually and without drama. Longevity allows them to reproduce over extended periods and survive long stretches of low food availability. Their metabolism is extremely slow, even by deep-sea standards. This allows sleeper sharks to endure extended fasting without serious consequences. When food is encountered, they feed opportunistically, consuming a wide variety of prey. Fish, cephalopods, and carrion all make the menu. Their jaws are powerful, and their teeth are designed for gripping rather than slicing, suitable for dealing with whatever happens to be available. Despite their slow movement, sleeper sharks are capable predators. They rely on stealth rather than speed, approaching prey gradually and striking when the opportunity presents itself. In the deep sea, where visibility is limited and reactions are delayed, this method is surprisingly effective. A slow-moving shark is still a shark, and underestimating it can be a fatal mistake. Their sensory systems are finely tuned for the deep. Chemical cues in the water guide them toward potential meals, and their ability to detect subtle movements allows them to navigate and hunt in near-total darkness. Vision plays a limited role compared to smell and vibration detection. In a world without light, other senses take the lead. The body structure of sleeper sharks reflects their lifestyle. Their muscles are not built for explosive speed, but for sustained, low-effort swimming. Their skin is thick and tough, providing protection in an environment where encounters with rough terrain and other large animals are possible. Everything about them suggests durability rather than agility. There is something deeply unsettling about an animal that moves so slowly, yet commands such respect. Sleeper sharks do not need to chase. They simply exist, confident that time is on their side. In an environment where most life is in no hurry, this approach fits perfectly. Human encounters with deep-sea sharks are rare, but when they happen, they challenge our expectations. These sharks do not behave like the aggressive predators of shallow waters. They are calm, deliberate, and seemingly indifferent to observers. Watching one pass by is like seeing a piece of ancient machinery still operating flawlessly. Their role in the ecosystem is subtle but important. As large predators and scavengers, they help regulate populations and recycle nutrients. Their presence influences the behavior of other animals, even if they are rarely seen. In the deep sea, influence does not require visibility. Massive deep-sea sharks remind us that survival does not always reward speed or aggression. Sometimes it rewards patience, efficiency, and the ability to endure. Like ancient submarines with teeth, they cruise the abyss quietly, carrying centuries of life experience in every slow, deliberate movement. When we think about what limits how big an animal can get, we often jump straight to food, space, or predators. But beneath all of that lies a quieter constraint that decides what is even possible in the first place: oxygen. Oxygen is not just helpful for life. It is the fuel that powers every movement, every thought, every cell doing its microscopic job. And in the deep sea, the way oxygen behaves changes the rules of size. Cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water. This is basic chemistry, but its biological consequences are enormous. In the deep ocean, temperatures hover just above freezing, allowing water to store oxygen more efficiently. Think of it like air density. Cold air carries more oxygen per breath than hot air. For deep sea animals, this means the surrounding water offers a richer supply of usable oxygen, even if food itself is scarce. This higher oxygen availability supports larger body sizes by making respiration more efficient. Oxygen can diffuse into tissues more reliably, travel through circulatory systems more effectively, and sustain cells that would otherwise struggle in low oxygen conditions. For large animals, this matters immensely. Bigger bodies mean longer distances for oxygen to travel. Without sufficient supply, cells starve, muscles weaken, and growth hits a hard ceiling. In warmer, shallower waters, animals often compensate with faster metabolisms, constant movement, and frequent feeding. In the deep sea, the strategy flips. Animals move slowly, but their environment supports steady oxygen intake. This allows them to maintain large bodies without the constant energy demands seen near the surface. More oxygen does not mean faster life, it means sustainable life. Body design plays a key role here. Many deep-sea giants have large gill surfaces or specialized respiratory structures that maximize oxygen extraction. Slow movement allows water to flow smoothly across these surfaces, improving efficiency. There is no frantic gasping or rapid breathing, just steady exchange, minute by minute, hour by hour, day after day. This oxygen advantage also interacts with pressure in subtle ways. At great depths, gases dissolve differently, and oxygen remains available even as conditions grow extreme. Deep sea animals have blood and respiratory pigments adapted to bind oxygen effectively under these pressures, ensuring that cells receive what they need. It is not just about having oxygen present, it is about being able to use it. The fuel tank analogy fits perfectly here. Imagine trying to drive a massive truck with a tiny fuel tank. You would constantly stop, refuel, and struggle to go any distance. Now give that truck a much larger tank, and suddenly long, slow journeys become possible. Deep-sea oxygen levels give large animals that larger tank. They are not sprinting, they are cruising. This does not mean oxygen is abundant everywhere in the deep ocean. There are regions with low oxygen levels, known as oxygen minimum zones, where life must adapt in different ways. But in many cold, deep habitats, oxygen availability removes one of the major constraints on size. When oxygen is not the bottleneck, evolution can explore larger designs. It is important to note that oxygen alone does not create giants. It enables them. Other factors decide whether large size is useful, safe, or efficient. But without adequate oxygen, size becomes a liability instead of an asset. The deep sea, in many regions, provides just enough respiratory support to make gigantism viable. This relationship between oxygen and size is not unique to the modern ocean. Throughout Earth's history, periods of higher atmospheric oxygen have coincided with larger animals, including massive insects and amphibians. The deep sea offers a localized version of that phenomenon, driven not by air composition, but by temperature and chemistry. What makes this especially fascinating is how invisible the process is. You cannot see oxygen shaping bodies, you cannot watch it at work, but it is there, quietly setting the upper limits of life, deciding whether a creature can afford to be large or must remain small. So, when you picture a giant animal drifting through the deep, remember that its size is not just about food or time or patience. It is also about breathing, about having access to enough oxygen to keep millions or billions of cells alive without rushing. In the deep sea, a bigger fuel tank does not make life faster. It makes it possible. In the deep sea, the concept of regular meals simply does not exist. There is no breakfast, no lunch, no late-night snack. Food arrives when it arrives, and everyone else adapts accordingly. For the giants of the deep, this means mastering a lifestyle that would make even the most dedicated intermittent faster raise an eyebrow. Down here, skipping meals is not a trend, it is a requirement. The deep ocean is vast, but energy is unevenly distributed. Most food originates near the surface and sinks slowly downward as organic debris. By the time it reaches great depths, what remains is sparse, unpredictable, and highly contested. Large animals cannot rely on steady intake, so instead they evolve to survive long stretches of nothing punctuated by rare opportunities for abundance. One key adaptation is metabolic suppression. Many deep-sea giants can dramatically lower their energy consumption when food is scarce. Their bodies enter a low-power mode, reducing movement, slowing digestion, and minimizing unnecessary processes. Muscles remain relaxed, activity drops, and the animal essentially coasts. This is not hibernation, but it is close, and it allows survival over astonishingly long periods without eating. Another strategy involves energy storage. When a deep-sea giant does feed, it often consumes large quantities at once. That energy is stored in various forms, ready to be drawn upon slowly over time. Fat reserves, specialized tissues, and chemical energy stores all play a role. The body becomes a living pantry, designed to release calories gradually, rather than burn them quickly. Digestive systems in these animals are also built for efficiency. Instead of rapid processing, digestion is slow and thorough, extracting as much value as possible from each meal. Nutrients are absorbed carefully, waste is minimized, and nothing is rushed. In an environment where the next meal is uncertain, wasting energy is not an option. Behavior reinforces these physiological adaptations. Deep-sea giants often reduce movement to the bare minimum required for survival. Instead of actively searching for food, many rely on encounter-based feeding, positioning themselves where food is likely to appear and waiting. This passive approach saves energy and increases the payoff when a meal finally arrives. Patience becomes a biological trait. Animals that cannot wait do not survive. Over evolutionary time, this selects for creatures capable of enduring hunger without panic. Hunger in the deep sea is not an emergency. It is the default state. This extreme fasting has fascinating consequences. Growth rates are slow, lifespans are long, and reproduction is carefully timed. Energy is allocated conservatively, ensuring that survival takes precedence over expansion. Every calorie matters, and every decision reflects that reality. From a human perspective, this lifestyle sounds miserable. But for deep-sea giants, it is simply normal. Their bodies are not craving constant intake, they are designed for scarcity. What would feel like starvation to us is business as usual to them. It is worth noting that infrequent feeding does not mean weakness. When deep-sea giants do eat, they are often highly effective. Rare meals must count, and when opportunity appears, these animals are ready. Their systems switch from conservation to action, and energy is deployed with precision. This ability to toggle between extreme thrift and decisive consumption is one of the defining features of deep-sea life. It allows giants to exist in a realm that would otherwise be too resource-poor to support large bodies. So when we joke about intermittent fasting in the deep sea, the humor comes from perspective. What we consider a challenge is, down there, a lifestyle refined over millions of years. Meals separated by months or years are not failures. They are expected. In the end, deep-sea giants teach us that survival does not always reward abundance. Sometimes it rewards restraint. In the darkness, where food is a rare visitor, the ability to wait longer than anyone else is often the greatest strength of all. Reproduction in the deep sea operates under one unavoidable reality. Finding a partner is hard. Space is vast. Population densities are low, and encounters between members of the same species can be rare events. For giant deep-sea creatures, this challenge has shaped some of the most unusual reproductive strategies on the planet. When you might drift for years without meeting another one of your kind, romance has to get creative. One common approach is sheer numbers. Many deep-sea giants produce enormous quantities of eggs, releasing them into the water in the hope that at least a few will survive. This strategy accepts that most offspring will not make it. Instead of investing heavily in each individual, the parent invests in probability. In an environment where unpredictability rules, this can be an effective way to ensure that some descendants continue the line. Eggs released into the deep ocean often contain large energy reserves, allowing developing embryos to survive long periods before finding suitable conditions. Some larvae drift upward into shallower waters, where food is more abundant, before eventually descending back into the depths as they mature. This vertical separation between adult and juvenile life stages reduces competition and increases the chances of survival. Other species take a very different approach, investing heavily in fewer offspring. These animals may produce relatively small numbers of eggs, but provide protection, either through brooding or extended care. In such cases, reproduction becomes a long-term commitment. Energy that could be used for growth or feeding is redirected toward ensuring that the next generation survives its most vulnerable stages. Mating itself can be an awkward affair in the deep sea. With limited opportunities to encounter partners, some species have evolved strategies to ensure that when they do meet, the moment is not wasted. This can include specialized sensory abilities to detect potential mates or physical adaptations that facilitate quick, decisive reproduction. In some cases, the roles of males and females differ dramatically. Males may be much smaller, built for locating females rather than surviving independently for long periods. Their entire existence revolves around the search for a mate. When one is found, the encounter can be brief but biologically permanent. Chemical communication plays a major role in deep-sea reproduction. Pheromones can travel long distances in water, acting as invisible invitations in the darkness. These signals help individuals locate one another without relying on vision, which is often unreliable or useless at depth. Timing is also crucial. Some species synchronize reproduction with environmental cues, such as seasonal changes in surface productivity. By releasing eggs at the right time, they increase the likelihood that offspring will encounter sufficient resources during early development. Even in the deep sea, where conditions appear constant, subtle rhythms influence life cycles. What makes these strategies particularly fascinating is how they reflect the trade-offs of deep-sea living. Energy is precious. Encounters are rare. Survival is uncertain. Every reproductive decision balances risk against reward, shaping behaviors that would seem extreme in more crowded environments. From our perspective, some of these strategies appear strange, even unsettling, but in the context of infinite space and limited opportunity, they make perfect sense. Deep-sea creatures do not have the luxury of trial and error. When reproduction happens, it must count. There is a certain poetry to this. In a world defined by darkness and distance, life still finds ways to connect, exchange genetic information, and continue. The methods may be unusual, but the goal is universal. In the end, the reproductive strategies of giant deep-sea creatures remind us that life adapts not just to physical conditions, but to social ones as well. When space is endless and meetings are rare, romance becomes a matter of strategy, timing, and a willingness to do whatever it takes to ensure the story does not end. For most of human history, the deep sea was not explored so much as imagined. We knew it was there, we knew it was deep, and we strongly suspected it was hiding things we would not enjoy meeting in person. Only in the last century did technology finally give us the courage and capability to look directly into the abyss. And with every descent, we have confirmed one uncomfortable truth. The deep sea never disappoints in its ability to surprise us. Submersibles are the primary vehicles of this discovery. These machines are designed to withstand pressures that would flatten conventional vessels like soda cans. Thick hulls, reinforced windows, and meticulous engineering allow them to descend kilometers below the surface, carrying scientists into environments no human could survive unaided. Sitting inside one is less like piloting a vehicle and more like trusting your life to a very confident metal bubble. Cameras are just as important as the vehicles themselves. High-sensitivity imaging systems allow us to see in near total darkness, capturing footage illuminated by artificial light. These cameras reveal animals in their natural habitats, moving and behaving in ways that cannot be replicated in captivity. Of course, they also reveal things that no one was emotionally prepared for. Remote-operated vehicles take this a step further. Controlled from ships at the surface, these robotic explorers can stay down longer and venture into spaces too risky for human-occupied submersibles. They crawl along the seafloor, hover in the water column, and peer into crevices, all while sending back live video. This allows scientists to observe deep-sea giants without disturbing them too much, though the sudden appearance of bright lights is rarely appreciated. Every expedition follows a similar emotional arc. It begins with careful planning, excitement, and scientific curiosity. Then the descent starts, the light fades, and the footage becomes increasingly strange. Shapes emerge slowly from the darkness, movements feel deliberate, proportions stop making sense, and somewhere between kilometer 2 and 3, someone on the research vessel quietly realizes they are not sleeping well tonight. Discovery in the deep sea often happens by accident. A camera set to monitor one species suddenly captures something enormous passing through the frame. A baited lander meant to study scavengers attracts a visitor far larger than expected. These moments are thrilling and unsettling in equal measure. They remind us that the deep ocean is not empty. It is just very good at hiding. Human exploration has also benefited from advances in mapping technology. Sonar systems allow researchers to identify unusual features on the seafloor, guiding dives toward promising locations. Sometimes these features turn out to be geological. Other times, they lead to thriving biological communities that rewrite our understanding of where large life can exist. What makes deep-sea exploration uniquely challenging is the fragility of the subjects. Many deep-sea giants cannot survive rapid pressure changes. Bringing them to the surface often results in damage or death, limiting what can be studied directly. As a result, observation has become the preferred method. We watch, we record, we try not to panic when something unexpectedly large fills the screen. There is also a psychological component to this work. Scientists and crew members regularly confront images that feel deeply alien. The deep sea does not conform to our visual expectations, and repeated exposure can be both fascinating and unsettling. It is one thing to know intellectually that strange creatures exist. It is another to see them emerge from darkness in high definition. Despite the risks and discomfort, exploration continues because the rewards are enormous. Each discovery adds to our understanding of life's adaptability and the planet's complexity. Deep sea giants are not just curiosities. They are clues to how life responds to extreme conditions, and they may hold insights relevant to fields ranging from ecology to medicine. In the end, human exploration of the deep sea is an exercise in humility. Every dive reminds us how little we know and how much remains unseen. And while every expedition carries the risk of discovering something that ruins sleep forever, it also carries the promise of expanding our understanding of the largest, darkest habitat on Earth. After traveling through darkness, pressure, patience, and creatures that seem determined to ignore our expectations, we arrive at the quiet realization that deep-sea giants are not anomalies. They are answers. Answers to the question of how flexible life can be when pushed to extremes. Every massive body drifting through the abyss is a reminder that survival does not follow a single blueprint. The deep sea strips life down to its essentials. Light disappears, temperature drops, and resources become unpredictable. Yet instead of shrinking away from these challenges, life expands into them. Giants emerge not because the environment is generous, but because evolution finds ways to make size useful, even where conditions seem hostile. This alone reshapes how we think about what environments can support complex, large organisms. One of the most profound lessons from deep-sea giants is that constraints breed creativity. Limited energy, sparse encounters, and immense pressure force adaptations that would never evolve in more forgiving environments. These creatures are not optimized for speed or dominance. They are optimized for persistence. They endure, often for centuries, quietly existing in a realm that rewards calm over chaos. There is also a lesson here about invisibility. Many of these giants lived and died long before humans knew they existed. Their size did not make them obvious. Their world hid them well. This challenges our assumption that big things are easy to find or understand. Sometimes, the largest forms of life remain unknown simply because they operate outside our usual frame of reference. Deep-sea giants also remind us that intelligence, efficiency, and success can take unfamiliar forms. A creature does not need complex social structures or constant activity to thrive. It can succeed by waiting, conserving, and responding only when necessary. In a world obsessed with speed and productivity, the deep sea offers a radically different model of success. There is humility in recognizing that these organisms exist independently of us, unaffected by our narratives or fears. They are not monsters. They are not mistakes. They are outcomes of natural processes unfolding over immense spans of time. Our discomfort often comes from how poorly they fit into our mental categories. The study of deep-sea giants has broader implications as well. By understanding how life adapts to extreme pressure, darkness, and scarcity, we gain insights that extend beyond Earth. These creatures inform how we think about potential life in similarly harsh environments elsewhere in the universe. If life can grow large and complex in the abyss, it expands the list of places where life might exist. At the same time, deep-sea giants highlight how much remains unexplored on our own planet. Vast regions of the ocean floor remain unvisited, and countless species likely remain undiscovered. The idea that Earth still holds secrets of this magnitude is both thrilling and unsettling. It suggests that our understanding of the world is always provisional. There is also a responsibility that comes with this knowledge. As human activity reaches deeper into the oceans, the habitats that support these giants face new pressures. Understanding their biology and ecology is a step toward protecting systems we barely comprehend. These creatures survived natural extremes. They may not be prepared for human ones. In the end, deep-sea giants force us to confront the limits of our imagination. They exist at the intersection of familiarity and alienness, reminding us that reality is often stranger than fiction. The abyss is not empty. It is crowded with life forms that challenge our sense of scale, normalcy, and possibility. So as we surface from the depths, one thought lingers. Beneath the waves, beyond the reach of sunlight, Earth still hides creatures so large and strange they feel like spoilers for reality itself. And the fact that they are real makes the world far more interesting than we ever expected.